We have another trade, Greeny. The Green Bay Packers are finalizing a trade to send Rashan Gary to the Dallas Cowboys. I'm told it's going to be a late round 2027 draft pick. We're awaiting the confirmation on the trade. They're still working through it, still finalizing the deal. But Rashan Gary looks like he's going to be headed to the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys get some defensive help.
Okay. That's one that we were looking forward to. Let me bring my guys in on this. I've got Graziano, I've got J-Mac here. So let me ask you guys. J-Mac, we're waiting to see what the Cowboys would do, if it would move aggressively. This feels reasonably aggressive. It's not Trey Hendrickson. It's not Max Crosby, which are one of the things that we had talked about, but it is a move. What can you tell us? What is your reaction to Rashan Gary now with the Cowboys?
Well, we talked about the fact that the Dallas Cowboys, how much did they miss out on with Max Crosby? And we said earlier that, hey, there's still some guys out there, maybe free agency and maybe trade. And a guy like Rashan Gary, who was paired with Micah Parsons a season ago, he brings them a guy on the edge that can get after the quarterback, maybe not at the level of a Max Crosby or Micah Parsons, but a really good defensive end that also can set the edge and stop the run. The Cowboys were going to need multiple players on the defensive side of the ball. Rashan Gary is just the first one to fall. They're going to need more guys, but a nice trade for the Dallas Cowboys to get a guy that's impactful on the edge.
A late round pick in next year's draft that feels like a pretty good bargain from a Dallas perspective.
Well, Rashan Gary's a guy that Green Bay was looking to do something with. I believe they save about $11 million against the cap with this move. So he didn't necessarily fit into their plans. So they get something in return for him. The Cowboys get a 21-year-old who can sack the or 28-year-old who can sack the quarterback. And the Cowboys clearly were big fans of last year's Green Bay Packers defense. Now they have Kenny Clark and Rashan Gary from it. But this answers the question of where do the Cowboys go once they lose out on Max Crosby. Now I would expect their resources to be put into those other positions we're talking about, off-ball linebacker, safety, cornerback. They need help at all those places.
There's a lot of that in the draft also, so they can address some of those in the draft. I'm told we've got Orlovsky back in Indianapolis. Excellent. Remember, all these guys will be together with McAfee and crew at noon Eastern today when all this officially begins. But as you can see, it is already off and running. What's your reaction, Dan? Rashan Gary to the Cowboys.
Yeah, I like this addition. 15 sacks over the last 2 seasons for Rashan Gary. And this is also one of the pieces that needed to be checked off for the Cowboys in free agency or the draft, that they just needed edge help. They did not have enough edge pass rush last year, so those 2 interior defensive tackles didn't get the impact that they wanted to. So this isn't just the final move, but this is a good start for Dallas. Off-ball backer like Graz is talking about and secondary player. It also makes me think that the Packers, I hope, are going to try to make a run to re-sign Romeo Doubs, their star wide receiver that I think they need to keep on the outside. But from a Cowboys perspective, this is a very good start to free agency. Rashan Gary, 15 sacks of the last 2 seasons, is a good pass rush defensive end.
He mentioned the Packers side of it. You think about it, Micah Parsons goes down with an injury late in that season, and now they're moving on from Rashan Gary. And I think we've kind of gone into this season thinking like, hey, is Green Bay going to go all in? They have a new defensive coordinator in John Gannon, but where are the next moves for Green Bay to show up that they're in the NFC and they're going to be a contender? Because, yes, a Romeo Doubs helps Jordan Love on the offensive side of the ball, but you gave up what you gave up for Micah Parsons a year ago, and now you're detracting from the defensive line that impacts Micah Parsons, who's going to be coming off of an injury.
Talent acquisition in the NFL is the definition of a zero-sum game. It is literally robbing from Peter to pay Paul. So maybe on some level, getting Rashan Gary for what they had to give up to get him relative to what it would have cost them to get Max Crosby. Again, Crosby's the big name. It would have led all the shows. It would be the much sexier move. But in this case, maybe this is a very sensible move. I'm told I still have Schefter working with me here. Schefter, fill in some more blanks for us as, again, the news continues to come in.
Yeah, well, this is going to be a third-day pick, as we talked about. They're finalizing it right now. It's third day. And it will reunite Rashan Gary with Kenny Clark. So 2 former Packers teammates now reunited in Dallas. The Cowboys and Packers have become trade partners here, going back to Micah Parsons last year. And Green Bay shaking things up. Obviously, they move off of Rashan Gary here. They're not done yet. Elton Jenkins, they've been trying to move as well. Their Pro Bowl center. I would expect that he's either traded or released here in the next 24 hours. So they're clearing out some cap space, moving on, transitioning. The Dallas Cowboys are adding to their defensive line. as we get started here with what should be a crazy, chaotic day of moves, Greeny.
And Orlovsky, it's just interesting. We hear, and I forget who it was that first made this comment to me, but this is the time that NFL teams tell you the truth, right? They spend all the time lying to you, and then the draft and free agency, if you forget about what they say and you watch what they actually do. The Packers, who were this close, it felt like, to being a Super Bowl team, Micah Parsons goes down, and now they have to start doing all of this retooling. The Cowboys, they sound like they're going for it, Dan. We've been waiting and waiting for them to go for it. Rashan Gary, I know it's not doesn't have the flash of a Max Crosby. I think this is a very, very good move. Dan, the Cowboys feel like a team that's going for it.
They need 3 moves. This is one of them. This is one of them. And I agree, Greeny. The Cowboys realize, and the football people in the NFL realize, this is a team that is far closer to competing than the maybe public believes that they are. If they can add another piece or two and then grease the draft, the Cowboys are going to be right in the conversation next year for legit contender.
Okay, so we will get into much more of this as we continue. But again, one move has been made in Dallas for a pass rusher. One move has been made in Baltimore for a pass rusher. There's still another one that we're waiting on. After the Baltimore Ravens make the aggressive move of Max Crosby on Friday night, where does that leave Trey Hendrickson? We will continue to dive into all the latest machinations of football free agency, but we always have time for sneaky Hembo against Graziano. So Max Crosby, whose teams have never advanced in the playoffs, has 69.5 sacks in his career. Who has the most career sacks among players never to appear in a playoff win? Players that have never won a playoff game.
Okay.
Was the most sacks? The answer is next.
Graziano rejoining the program to speak of wide receiver 1 out there in Philly. For now, of course, we're talking about A.J. Brown. Dan, it's the question, will he or won't he return? Why is today absolutely massive?
Because today at noon Eastern is when teams can start to get some idea what their other options are. So if you want a wide receiver and you're trying to get A.J. Brown and you know you may need to go to plan B, this afternoon is when, the Patriots have been talking to the Eagles about A.J. Brown. This is no secret. If they feel like they can't get him and they want to go spend free agent money on someone like Alec Pierce, then they would probably need to know that this afternoon, because that's probably when Alec Pierce's market starts to move, and that probably takes them out of A.J. Brown. So while things seem to have cooled on the A.J. Brown front over the weekend, only takes one phone call to heat him back up again. We'll see what happens here in the next few hours, but it is certainly possible that teams that are interested in A.J. Brown move on to other options today.
Speaking of moving on to the other options, where do the Cowboys now pivot after missing out on Max Crosby?
Yeah, they will. The Cowboys are looking for edge rush help. They're also looking for linebacker, cornerback, and safety help. We all know about their defense from last year. So people will connect them, I think, with Trey Hendrickson, the veteran edge rusher from the Bengals. But he's a little older than guys they usually pursue in free agency. So I might look at edge rushers that are a little bit in the mid to late 20s ranges in terms of their age. And remember that the Cowboys have a lot of needs on defense. They took a big swing at Max Crosby because they felt like he was a difference maker. If they don't feel the same way about the other edge rushers on the market, they may pivot and spend more at cornerback or spend more at linebacker. A lot of needs on the defensive side of the ball for Dallas in free agency and in the draft.
Jerry says he's spending this offseason. Hey, what is the likelihood that Super Bowl MVP Kenneth Walker III is not back in Seattle next season?
It sounds like a strong likelihood. It sounds like he's going to hit the market. And if he finds what he's looking for on the market, then I do believe he will leave Seattle. Now, Breece Hall got a $14.3 million franchise tag from the Jets last week. So if you're a free agent running back who just won Super Bowl MVP, you are trying to reach or top that number. We'll know a little bit more today on whether Kenneth Walker can do that. If the market doesn't materialize for him, he could theoretically go back to the Seahawks. But it sounds like both sides are looking at other options at this point. Teams we're hearing for Kenneth Walker include the Commanders, possibly the Giants, the Titans. I do think there will be teams interested. The question is, how high does his market go? And if it goes past a certain level, then it's obviously something Seattle's not comfortable with, or they would have signed him by now.
Nobody stays on the pulse better than Dan Graziano. More with Graz, 8 a.m. Eastern on Get Up. Graz, much appreciated. The next Sports Center, 2 p.m. Eastern.